All right, what's up, guys? Welcome into All Tied Up. It is the Monday mailbag and first game of the year reaction, overreaction, underreaction. I don't know. A lot of different reactions from the first game in the Kalen DeBoer era. I am your co-host, Chris Marler, and I'm joined by our favorites and I would say special guests because I feel like I'm the guest here. But Clint Lamb, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. Show everybody your water. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead.
I
Do
got
it.
a fancy water today.
That is a one-sized glass bottle of water. I didn't know you were doing that well, Chris. I'm sorry. I didn't know life was going that well for you.
Listen,
but,
I got Saratoga water money. No, me and the GF, we watch Top Chef, and they always have it on there. And it looks really good. I think it's just because the color of the bottle looks the same as the Water Boy, and of course you're drinking out of a red Solo cup to make me look like an a-hole. So there's that. All right, dude, let's get Bob Rutherford's asked if it's hard to open. If there's anything I've learned so far from our audience, we cannot get started on my favorite dining habits because then the YouTube comments will be all over the place. But listen, let's get right into this game. And I'll answer Saratoga water questions later. But 63-0, right off the start, Kalen DeBoer era. And that included, Clint, a situation where I thought it'd be the worst possible thing that could happen with an off season of excitement and build up and all that kind of stuff with the DeBoer era, which was a 3-and-out. And you saw that when the offense got the ball. That's exactly what happened. I was like, oh, here we go. But initial takeaways from the game from you were there, I'm assuming.
I was there, yeah.
Okay.
Fun game. Fun on both sides of the football, man. It's exactly what we thought it was going to be, right? Very aggressive defensively, a lot of rotation, a lot of, got that attacking mentality or style of play. The one gapping scheme, doing all that, moving guys around. And it was fun defensively, offensively. You would like to see a little bit more consistency. That's something that I think a lot of fans would agree with. It wasn't all good. Jalen Milroe was not perfect, but I thought he was really good in this game. I thought he showed improvement in some pretty key areas. I thought that he had a great command of the offense. And just when you look at where he was in the season opener a year ago compared to where he was on Saturday, night and day difference. So is he where he needs to be or probably wants to be? No, but he's quickly getting there. And him at, as a work in progress is still way better than 99% of college quarterbacks. So Alabama's in really good shape, man. What did you think about it? What were your takeaways?
So it's funny that you brought this up that they're like, wasn't perfect. QBR was 98.7. I think it led the country. About as high as you can get. He was 7 of 9 for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Had 10 carries for 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he opened the year with almost 300 yards of offense and 5 touchdowns. Here's the takeaway, and I thought about texting you this during the game, but you're a horrible texter for one, so I knew you weren't going to respond. And then 2, I was like, I don't want to sound stupid after one game, but just follow along with me here. Did it kind of feel like they obviously played very well, but I felt like I learned so little because there were so many chunk plays. It was almost like, okay, we can't be this good. Like, there's no way they can be this good. Like Justice Haynes coming in, 4 carries, 102 yards. Like it was. But here's the thing. And Greg Skipworth in the comments, we appreciate you guys joining us in the comments. Make sure you guys are following along and letting us know your thoughts on the game as well. Because listen, everyone has an opinion on it, and a lot of times we might miss stuff. But he says, I think the defense is on point. Generally, rush 4 didn't show a lot of flash, saving that for later games. I'm going to give you a stat which stood out to me the most because I think we kind of expected. If you I would maybe expected is not the right word, but if you said, "Hey, Bama's going to score 63 points," yep, I can see that. Bama's going to have 600 yards of offense, yep, I can see that. Milroe's going to have 5 touchdowns, yep, I can see that. He did it last year in his opener against MTSU. I can see that. Bama's going to hold an offense that has been near the top 15, 20 in the country for several years now, especially throwing the football. They're going to hold them to 145 total yards and their lowest offensive output in over 15 years. It's not since the game against Tennessee on September 5th, 2009. Today, Bama was playing Virginia Tech that day. September 5th, 2009. So we're talking about 15 years worth of games. That's the last time they were held even under 200 yards of offense. This is an offense that has been very, very consistently good. It might not be the Bailey Zappi era where they're throwing for 60 touchdowns in a year, but like for the fact I kept saying it here, I was like, they're going to get tested a little bit. Like they're going to get tested a little bit in the secondary. There's, like the line is 31.5 but it made sense that it was like, it's a young secondary. They're going to get tested. And I don't think that Bama's necessarily going to play like this all season. I would love for them to do it. Like I would love for this to be the whole thing. But I was very, very impressed with parts of the defense and parts of the team that I didn't expect to be mainly the defense.
Yeah, I definitely was impressed with the defensive performance. I mean, you have to be. There's no way you walk away from it not being impressed. Right. Once again, it's a season opener. There are a lot of new faces. So was it perfect? No. 21 play drive, that's never good. But it resulted in 0 points. And granted, I guarantee you Western Kentucky regretted that later because that could have gotten the goose egg off the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Probably should have kicked a field goal. But it was exactly what we were expecting in the sense of it plays to the personnel. It covets versatility. Like you look at Quay Russaw, you look at Jihaad Campbell, you look at a guy like Keon Sabb.
Yeah.
Just anybody that has a very versatile, very complete skill set, it highlights their talents. And that's exactly what you saw. I mean, Sabb coming up with 2 interceptions, playing in that vision oriented, coverage scheme that Womack likes to use. You see Jihaad Campbell, he's playing off-ball linebacker. He's lining up as an edge rusher. He's making an impact from both spots, doing a lot of different things with him. A guy like Justin Jefferson, him coming into the game just really from start to finish, it was, guys were having fun. And I think it definitely looked like we were expecting in the sense of they had more interceptions than sacks.
Right.
And, 2 interceptions, 1 sack. This is what we were talking about. You saw pressure generated on the quarterback consistently throughout the game. And the way that Kane Womack's defense kind of is set up, you haven't seen massive sack numbers from his guys. I think, outside of one outlier, year, several years ago in like 2017, where a guy had 12.5 sacks, like the leader had like 6.5 in any one season. So you don't see massive sack numbers, but what you do see is constant pressure on the quarterback, and their goal, it seems like, is pressure generating turnovers rather than pressure generating sacks. And that's exactly what you saw. Quarterbacks were under duress. Yeah. That dropped interception by Deontay Lawson, which was 1,000% going to be a pick six if he catches it. That is Quay Russaw. Great inside move, immediate pressure on TJ Finley. He wanted to go to the slot. He knew it wasn't there. And so he kind of hesitated a little bit, but because of the pressure with Russaw, he went ahead and threw it anyways. Terrible decision. Yeah. And it was just, should have been a third interception by him. It's a fun defense, man. I know I say that a lot, but just when you watch it and then going back and watching it again, there's just so many elements and aspects where I'm like, man, this is like, you can tell guys are playing free. They're playing loose, and it's a good brand of football.
Honestly, I think the thing that was the surprising part of it was the sack numbers were low, right? And like everything you just brought up makes sense as to why. But there's also so many different things that affect the outcome of a game. And in this situation, like sacks are great. Like I would have loved it if I saw 7 sacks on the stat sheet or like anything like over a handful, like over 5, like plus whatever. But like hurries, quarterback hits, like pressures, all that kind of stuff. Like it didn't ever feel like they had time to throw. It didn't ever feel like, any quarterback they put in there was going to be able to drop back, make a decision, have anything open up and develop, especially downfield. And I'll tell you the other thing I really like, besides the Keon Sabb thing, because it's kind of like, you look at the Keon Sabb thing, and I know I saw this kind of floating around Twitter as a joke from a lot of fans, but that is a question mark you had because you lose Caleb Downs, who's the best safety in the country. And then lo and behold, in your very first game, the safety you have to replace him with ends up having 2 interceptions. Like love to see that, getting off to a great start for that kid. Good for him, good for the defense, all that. The other thing, though, and I think a lot of Bama fans, if you said, what's the strength of this team defensively and maybe overall, it is going to be the 2 linebackers, Jihaad Campbell and Deontay Lawson. And they lead the stat sheet. They were all over the field. Jihaad Campbell is a star. Like Jihaad Campbell is an absolute star. He doesn't necessarily do stuff that's like super flashy. It's not like a like in the Kobe Dean type thing, or even, like Dylan Moses in the early years that he was there at Bama and stuff like that. But it is every single time you look up, he is in on a play. He is in on a play. He's affecting a play. And it's, God, like sideline to sideline almost like doesn't do it justice. I feel like he's just everywhere on the field. And Lawson as well. Lawson, obviously we know you have in him. He's a fantastic linebacker as well. So I think that the idea that you might have the best linebacking core in the country, especially, or in the conference and maybe even the country, I feel like that's not like you can't do anything to prove me wrong. Like that they aren't as after one game.
1,000% correct. And just the linebacker play. Now, granted, at this point, based off of what I saw, one of the biggest strengths of this team is just the pure depth at a lot of positions. The fact that they were rotating so many guys in there and they were getting effective play, that to me was wild. Now, I didn't know at the time. I wasn't listening to the broadcast. Apparently, they brought up that Deshaun Jones might have had some sort of injury and that had him limited. It makes more sense in hindsight that Zay Mincy was like that, fourth corner coming in behind Jalen Mbakwe and the two guys that started, Xavier Brown and Damani Jackson. But like, just the fact that they brought in Mincy, and Mincy I thought was playing pretty good football. Once again, he's a freshman. It's his first game. Do I think he was perfect? No, I can go in there and criticize some things that he needs to continue to improve on. But for being a first game against that style of offense, now here's the thing. This might be like a hindsight thing as well, where we're looking at Western Kentucky in 6 or 7 weeks, and they have one of the worst offenses in college football.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, that wasn't as impressive as we thought it was going to be. But it's been one of the most impressive offenses in college football, and it racks up a lot of yardage as far as through the air. The quarterback play has been really good. And I understand TJ Finley. You thought his experience in the SEC and the fact that he had experience against Kane Womack's defense, you thought that was going to help him. And really, it didn't.
No.
But, just watching this group, whether it be the depth in the defensive backfield, the linebackers bringing in Justin Jefferson, thought he played really well. All three linebackers did. Jihaad Campbell, 9 tackles, which was tied for the game high. Now, 8 of those were in the first half, too. You start subbing different guys in the second half, but 8 tackles and a half, lining up in different spots. He was making an impact from the edge as far as putting pressure. He batted a ball back to TJ Finley and then tracked him down for a loss. He was his recognition and anticipation has improved so much from last year.
Yeah.
Like you saw before the guy even went in motion, it was going to be a jet, and before the guy even moved, he knew it was coming back to the other side, and he knew exactly what play it was going to be. I don't know what he saw to make him know that, but it was clear as day he knew it. And he gets over the top and forces the receiver back inside, and it's a tackle for, I think, either no gain or like a loss of 1. But it's like, just the fact that he was seeing the field so well, and he was being asked to do so many different things, and he was doing all of it at a very high level. That's where, and I understand the comparisons to Micah Parsons have existed for a while. I didn't come up with that, but just seeing it, I've never been on board with I try to avoid those caliber of comparisons, and when I do compare guys, it's like, okay, if there's a 6'3", 250-pound running back, I'll say, okay, that guy looks very much like Derrick Henry, but I won't say he is Derrick Henry. But with the
way hold on, Paul Tyson has the arm of Patrick Mahomes. The running, one of my favorite moments of all time.
It just, I was very, very impressed with everybody, the way that they played, and I think it's going to be a defense that continues to get better too. Like you would look at some of these guys, and the fact that the communication went down, and they weren't able to utilize it, and that did not impact things, or it didn't seem to, at least on the defensive side at all. Very, very impressed with how they handled things.
I'll tell you this, and thank you for Jackson Lindor for the super chat, throwing in $4.99. I don't think he made a comment in there.
No, he did, but we got a question of his that we're going to be talking about here in just a few minutes.
Cool. Okay, so here's the last thing I want to say, and this is, if I were to critique anything that did happen, right? Like if you were forced to critique anything, because it's hard to like look at this and like not be super excited. I'll say the last thing that I really did like before I say the one critique that I had, which is Kalen DeBoer going out on the field. I forgot who had the quote on this, but he said to the team, I cannot wait to watch you guys play tonight. Go out there and cut it loose. And that kind of mentality is like, that just made me so amped up that it felt like he has like that pregame it factor. I know he doesn't cuss, which is not my favorite thing. I do enjoy when I get to hear non-Dabo-esque. I like the Kirby pregame talks and the Saban pregame talks way more than I like the Dabo kind of thing. But I do love the fact that he just feels so much like a player's coach, and it doesn't feel like it's for show. It feels like this is just how he runs his ship. Like this is just, and the guys he has brought in, they seem to really get it to the same exact thing. The only thing I will say that I was hoping to see that we didn't see was I was hoping to see more involvement in spreading the football around to more receivers. And hear me out on that, because like you only had 8 different guys catch a pass, right? I'll pull it up real quick. You had 8 different guys catch a pass, and only 3 of them had multiple catches, right? 2, 3, and 2 were the totals for players that had multiple catches. There was the reason why that worries me is that, like, can you have in 2021, and I'm gonna go doomsday here. So this is not realistic or saying that it's like this is what's going to happen, but I just hear me out as to why. Because when you are at this level, you have to prepare for everything, and it's not just, hey, we beat the crap out of Western Kentucky, moving on, like we're the greatest team in the world. But like you saw in 2021 how important it was, like, to be able to get other people involved in the passing game, because when you lose guys like Mechie and J-Mo and your go-to guy is Slade Bolden, it's hard to beat elite teams. So you want to have as many guys in there with as many as much experience as possible. And I was sitting there looking at it, especially in the box score and like watching the game. I was like, man, I really wish I saw more out of Caleb Odom. I wish we had more answers, and I wish I would have seen Kendrick Law with more than one catch. But it's hard to have more than one catch. What's that?
Jeremy Bernard? The guy we thought was going to be the number 1 receiver, he got 1 target.
So it's that part was, it's not frustrating, is not the right word. And Jackson Lindor is bringing a good point about it. But here's the thing. He makes the point for me is there wasn't really enough total offensive snaps to support how it played out. It's hard to get multiple passes and multiple completions and receptions to people when Ryan Williams is having 84-yard touchdowns and
you attempt 18 passes,
right?
Target both quarterbacks.
Right.
18 passes.
You put up.
That's insane. And so I'm right there with you. I get it too, and I found myself wanting more as far as Jeremy Bernard, Kendrick Law, just the move he made, on the touchdown, phenomenal. It's like, hey, let's get this guy more involved. I do think some of it is a vanilla approach, given the situation. And I'll go ahead and tell you right now, maybe I'm wrong, and I will completely eat my words if I am. But just to me, the way, if it's anything like my picks this past weekend, it's very wrong. Very, very wrong. We'll get to that later episode. But man, that was rough. But it was like you really didn't see. There was way too much rotation at the beginning of the game. I think Kalen DeBoer was very confident in this team's ability to get the job done. And it's really not going to be, it wasn't like it was waiting until they were up 14 points and then you start rotating guys a little bit more because you feel like you're in control. Some people might say that's a little bit early to be doing that. It was kind of like right out of the gate. And I do think they're still trying to figure some things out. I still think there's some battles going on. Like Devontae Smith is leading the Husky battle for sure, but Red Morgan's still very much involved in that competition. So you're going to be rotating there. Cornerback, I think here sooner rather than later, it's going to be a Xavier Brown, Damani Jackson. They're the starters. You might see a little rotation, but you're not going to see what you saw against Western Kentucky, and you're certainly not going to see it that early in the game. But so it did feel like that the approach was just, let's get a lot of guys involved. Let's see what they can do. Let's put them in different situations. You didn't really have the field and boundary stuff too much. It felt more matchup based where, guys were playing field and boundary. It was just a very encouraging performance. But when, going back to what you were talking about with the receivers and wanting to get those guys involved, I didn't feel like the tight ends hardly got any involvement. So you want to see that, but at the same time, it's hard to argue against the success. Like people want, and myself included, want to see the more sustained drives and then be able to choose some clock and really eat into some things a little bit. And then it's like, I mean, just the opportunities didn't present themselves. What do you want Ron Williams to do? He's breaking open for a touchdown and just fall down so we can get a couple more plays out of this.
Yeah.
So, that's, they ran the football effectively. They weren't planning on scoring or getting a 39-yard gain and a 40-yard gain and an 85-yard touchdown and all this stuff. So it was more so of, they ran a play. They felt confident that it was going to be successful, and they just didn't know it was going to be that successful that often.
Right.
So that's what kind of leads to that a little bit. Just 18 passes. It's impossible to really have anybody super involved when that happens.
Yeah.
What that will make people think is back to last year, because guys had, Malik Benson was a starting receiver, started pretty much every game, and he finished with like 21 total targets the entire year. That's like unheard of. So people get confused. It looked different. I will say, though, it also looked a lot different against MTSU than it did against Texas in week 2. So I don't want to get too carried away with this, but just the signs were there. It was very encouraging.
No, I agree. Let's get into the mailbag.
Let's do it, man. So from Jackson, who already made the super chat, we appreciate you very, very much. What are your thoughts on Devontae Smith and Red Morgan moving forward based on the Western Kentucky game? Red got some early action and played 30 total snaps to Devontae's 20. Devontae played well and graded out higher PFF-wise, and Red had a few freshman/situational moments where he'll grow from experience. But I really do like what Red brings to the table, too. I think he could be a good player for us. Curious of your opinions.
So I'll give you this. It's way too early necessarily to think anything definitively of like that person deserves to be playing over this person like wholeheartedly, right? It's a pass offense from Western Kentucky that has ranked 15th, 2nd, and 1st in the country overall over the last 3 seasons. Those are their last 3 season ranks. And again, so you hold them to 101 total yards like that. There's misery. Yeah. It's impossible to not be impressed with that. I don't say shocked that I saw Red Morgan out there more than Smith. But I kind of was like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I think that one thing Bama fans are going to have to probably get used to with this year's team, especially with what you lost in the portal. You lost 41 guys in the portal. Is that whole name brand player and recruit that you've had coming in. Like once there's a new coaching staff, you had to get a fresh start from everyone, right? And I think that like a lot of times we kind of assumed, and it's happened in the past, it's like, well, it's fine with him sounding like a 5-star like Brockenmeyer because we got another 5-star. You signed like the top 2 tackles in the country that 1 year specifically with him. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Like, and if you're a player, you have to be just thrilled beyond belief that you might have a new chance with a new coaching staff to kind of, having like a fresh start. So I think that they're going to need both regardless, because that secondary it's just not as deep as we've had in years past. And it doesn't have a ton of experience. So I'm glad they both got reps. I don't think I would read too much into the 30 versus the 20. Him having 30 versus Devontae having 20 might just mean they needed him to get more reps and get more experience and get more things to learn from, because there's nothing like being able to learn experientially, right? It's great watching tape. It's great going up in practice, but being out on the field and kind of getting your feet wet in a real situation scenario always goes a lot longer, a lot further along. What am I trying to say?
Goes
a long way.
Yeah.
A longer way. Yeah. I almost nailed it. 2 minutes of talking there. I mean, I just absolutely butchered the last 10 seconds.
It's the water, brother.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, you nailed it. I mean, right there at the end, it is the fact that he's a true freshman playing in his first ever game. They wanted to get him more reps. It's like Devontae's was more its first team when you start getting first team out.
Right.
You don't put Devontae back in. With Red, he's getting those first team reps. He's seeing series and action with the starters, but even when you start working into that depth a little bit more, you want him to get more reps and you need him to get more reps. So you're leaving him out there for longer. He kind of starts splitting reps with King Mack rather than Devontae Smith. And so that's how that ends up happening.
Yeah.
Now granted, Malachi Moore ended up playing, I want to say like well over 80% of the snaps, which was the highest on defense.
Right.
And to me, that's probably a position change. You're wanting him to get used to playing safety, or maybe he wants to get more used to playing safety. I don't know really what other reason there would be for that compared to a lot of the other guys, because it was, I want to say close to about 9 or 10 more than the next highest defensive player. But with as far as Red, I liked how he played. I thought he was exactly what we were expecting. He is undersized, and that size, just like we saw in the spring game a little bit, it did hurt him in certain moments. But and you also had the defensive pass interference, which everybody, that's a guy that's just battling, and he's young, and he's going to get way better at that. But I thought he bounced back pretty well from it. Yeah, but Devontae Smith, I thought he played really, really well, against the run, very physical, in coverage. There was a crosser where he was able to, get his hand on it and break it up, prevent the catch. I think he was targeted twice and did not give up a catch on either one. So, I thought he played extremely well at that Husky position, better than I was expecting, actually. And so, I think he is the leader, but I still think Red Morgan's going to be involved in that. He's going to continue to get bigger and stronger.
Right.
He's going to continue to get more experience. And as he gets more experience, he's going to start figuring some things out. But they love the football IQ. They love the tenacity that he plays with. And I definitely think that that's only going to continue to improve over time. Next question from Bryant Pratt. Assuming Caden Proctor is out for a good amount of time, what are the backup options if we see another injury at a tackle spot? Do we kick Booker out to a tackle spot and have Vandermark play a guard spot, or is there a young guy that fills the shoes next? Now, this question was asked prior to, Kalen DeBoer kind of giving us an update. So it doesn't look like it's going to be super long term, but there is, you quickly realize, okay, more depth is needed there because, now you've got 2 healthy tackles. Don't know how long Proctor's going to be out. So what happens if something happens with one of those 2 guys? So it's definitely a question still worth asking.
What the hell happened? Like, I know it happened in pregame, but it was like, I mean, I just like here's my take on it too. And this is like, so you played football, obviously, and I played sports. So it's like, when I think about how, like when I saw him on the sidelines and I saw his arm in a sling and it wasn't through the shirt, that was worrisome for me, because what that just told me is like, man, if his shoulder hurts bad enough that he can't lift it through the sleeve hole of a shirt, like that doesn't seem great. Glad it's not gonna be forever. And how also that's like, dude, like you could argue that would be the worst potential body part at times for like an offensive lineman or somebody playing in the trenches to hurt, because you're using that every single play. Like every single play you're using your shoulder. So like if it feels a little bit out of whack, like that's just sucks that it happened in game one. You saw
game one.
Yeah, pre-game one. You saw Pritchett kind of struggle early, gave up a sack at left tackle. I think that's when we all kind of realized Caden Proctor's out. But because I was watching it and I was like, what in the hell just happened? But no, I mean, I think that I'll let you answer the question of who kind of kicks out that way. I thought they did a good job. I thought Formby did a good job. I thought Pritchett did a good job. I'm glad the experience kind of kicked in. It's kind of funny is not the right word, but it's like, it's something we spent so much time like trying to break down, like, all right, who's going to win the right tackle spot? Lo and behold, the very first game, you got to start them both at each tackle position. So that's I tell you what, one of the things for me, and I played baseball throughout my life and through college, like it's a different sport, but what I always needed was routine. I needed a routine. I wanted to know if I was going to start. I hated coming off the bench, even though I did. Like I wanted a routine. I wanted to know like how I needed to get my mind right. Kudos to both those kids for going into a game without really understanding if they're both going to play the entire time, and then having to get like kind of thrown into the fire and responding the way they did, because that is not easy to do. I don't care who you're playing.
Yeah, and that's a big takeaway of this, in my opinion, is just the fact that, as they approach the game, they're battling it out at right tackle. And, you're doing everything you can to give yourself an edge and win that job. Coach Cap talked about, hey, I don't think either one of those 2 are happy about having to rotate. They both want to be the guy. I'm very happy with the fact that they're rotating. But, and they got their opportunity. Like, this is why you prepare. And obviously you didn't end up having to play every single snap, but it was Pritchett has spent enough time at left tackle where, I knew there would probably be a little bit of rust because he hadn't done it in a few weeks, but you would expect him to be able to hold up well enough. And he certainly did. I thought, that initial kick step, it's still not getting deep enough in my opinion. And I will say, I don't know if I'm the OL expert. I watched the game. I kind of know what I'm supposed to be looking for, but on some of these positions, there's probably like an OL expert out there that could break this down way better than I can. But from just my observations, I don't think he's getting enough depth. It's a shorter step, and then he's trying to turn and chase. He's not. And what happens is when you got a speed rusher off the edge, they're turning the corner on you every time. I've seen it with Evan Neal in the NFL. That's his biggest problem. And so, you would like to see that get cleaned up. But I did think that he had a few other pass reps where he looked really good. And it's like, okay, so he's definitely capable of doing it. There just needs to be a little bit more consistency to his game. And you would expect for that aspect to continue to improve as he gets more experience. But, I thought Formby played really, really good. Yeah. And I was very impressed with him and what he did. It was unfortunate because, you're wanting to see that right tackle battle. We wanted to know where it stood.
Right.
Is it, Wilkin Formby was announced over the, loudspeakers as the starter. So at least we got that information, but that's it. Because it was, is it like Formby is definitely leading this competition because he played 60% of the snaps compared to 40% for Pritchett? Or is it a full 50-50 split where it's every other series? Kind of what's it looking like? Where is it trending? And we really got no answers other than, more than likely Formby has a slight edge at the very least right now. But it was very valuable to both guys to get those reps. And I understand that Pritchett came on the left side, but just the fact that, these guys need experience, and through Proctor's absence, both of them got that. So that's certainly good.
Let me ask you this, because this is I think that the better question may be from a optimism standpoint. You hope that Caden comes back and Proctor comes back. I mean, where he's 100% and he doesn't have any issues the rest of the year. So if that happens, do you think that this is helping or hurting Pritchett? Because now Formby is not only more familiar with the position and also has been getting all the reps. Like, do you think that hurts Pritchett in the long run with that? Because like if he does a good job, I don't know if you just bump him out to right and slide him over there because of how good of a job Formby did.
Well, and I mean, how much did it help Formby and hurt Pritchett? That Pritchett was the one knowing that Proctor was coming back after the spring. He spent the entire spring at left tackle. And of course they were going to make him earn it. And Pritchett was showing improvement. So it's like, that was like not really an intentional thing by the coaching staff. And you also don't want to say, hey, before Proctor even gets back, we've already decided you're not going to be the guy over here at left tackle. So we're moving you to right tackle so you can go ahead and start competing over there.
Yeah.
But that was, it was, I'm sure that gave Formby a huge leg up in the competition. And I'm sure, those reps coming at right tackle where that's where you're competing. Like we know what to evaluate with Formby at right tackle. We don't know how to evaluate Pritchett because he might've been phenomenal at left tackle. He might've been mediocre at left tackle, but that it can translate some, but you don't know to what degree. So it would have been nice to be able to see him play right tackle, but we do know, but beyond a shadow of a doubt, Pritchett kind of is that swing guy. And that's kind of what we had said. If something happens to Formby, we know it's going to be Pritchett at right tackle. But if something happens to Proctor, it's not going to, even if Pritchett ends up being the starter at right tackle, I almost guarantee you it's going to be Formby coming in at right, Pritchett going to left.
Yeah.
So, and I do want to actually answer the question because they're asking, where do they turn from a depth perspective? Who ends up playing that? I like the thought of Vandemark's kind of would be your next best offensive lineman. So at that point, you probably would want to move Booker somewhere, get Geno into the mix, get your best five out there. But how does that look? Can Tyler Booker hold up at left tackle? When's the last time he played it? He's 330 plus pounds. He was kind of that big, but he was playing right tackle his freshman year, and I don't think, would it be like Formby going to left, Tyler Booker going to right, Geno Vandemark coming to left guard? That's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
A lot of putting guys in positions they haven't really played. I don't know that you would do that. So that is an interesting question. In the past, I've thought about Olas Alinen, or however you say it. I always butcher his name. I apologize. But to me, if he did play tackle, which he does have that guard tackle versatility, in my opinion, I think it would be more right tackle. So, we haven't seen him play in any tackle. Casey Poe is a guy who, played left tackle in high school. He's gotten significantly bigger. Can he carry that weight and keep the athleticism? Back in the spring, he was a guy I predicted would be involved. This was before Proctor announced that he was coming back, but he was a guy who I thought he could be a dark horse to win the left tackle job. But now he's up to 322 pounds. He has played zero tackle from what I've, heard or seen. So I don't know about him, but Trand and McVay's like a right tackle. I mean, he just is. But he is their fourth best tackle, in my opinion, which is why, okay, if you've got Proctor at left, you've got your second and your third best battling at right tackle, then, okay, you need to have McVay as your fourth tackle and even it up where it's not three of your top four playing on the right side and just one playing on the left.
Yeah.
So it made sense for them to kick him over left tackle, even though I don't think that fits, but he probably would have to be the guy at this point. So, that is a very interesting question. It's an interesting point. I just don't know really what to make of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Hopefully Proctor's isn't overly serious. He's back soon and you can get back to having 3 quality tackles. All right. Final question from Jim Pryor. And this is, Jihaad Campbell really impressed me on Saturday. Him and Quay Russaw were all over the place. I know it's only one game, but do you think these guys have All-American potential this year? Campbell feels like a sure thing, barring health.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, the best player on that defense at times a year ago, and I'm looking at like the Ole Miss game and the Tennessee game specifically. Just 247 Sports just playing music in the background about armpit deodorant health.
We can't hear, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good. So I think Jihaad Campbell from last year, right? Going into like what was it the game? It was Ole Miss that he had to fill in, right? The very first time.
Yes.
Right, and he had like 13 tackles. And then you look at what he did against Tennessee, where he came in obviously and he seals the game with like that scoop and score. That guy, it's not just whether he's in the backfield making like tackles for loss or if he's like in coverage, sideline to sideline. He's all over the field. I don't think that if like going in the last season, especially, I know that he was highly ranked rated coming out of high school, but it didn't feel like he was going to be the answer at linebacker. It was going to be Lawson and probably Tresvant Marshall, and they were going to see the field the most. And like the moment that kid stepped on the field, I just kept thinking, I was like, how do you take him off the field? So I think Campbell is legitimately like, it's early in the season. He has All-American type talent. I don't know what kind of numbers he's going to put up throughout the entire year. In some situations, you got to deal with these, at this point now you have to deal with like idiots like the guy at ODU, Old Dominion, who they're fabricating his actual numbers so he gets like 170 tackles and makes All-American teams. Like, but all jokes aside, I do think that he is one of the most talented linebackers in the country that not enough people are talking about. Like Lawson, I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough, like nationally. But Campbell, I just feel like Campbell has played better than him in a lot of situations. Maybe not the leadership part of it. Maybe maybe not the guy that is as vocal when he's out there. But he speaks with his pads, like to quote Dan Lanning, man.
I mean, there's no doubt about it that he's one of the best linebackers in the country.
Right.
And what's unfortunate for him, I think a big part of his problem, he was making the kind of transition to be a full-time off-ball linebacker last year. I say full-time. Obviously, He's not full-time, but I think eventually Nick Saban and those guys would have had him in kind of a similar versatile type of role. But he was transitioning to be primarily an off-ball linebacker last year, and he had done that in high school. But just this feel, it's a much different position, and you got to have a feel for as far as your run fits. You had that 2-gapping scheme. So it's all, what gap you're responsible for as a linebacker is dictated based off of certain things. The defensive lineman ends up, sliding into one gap. You got to take over another. So it's a much more difficult scheme. So I think just naturally going to the 1-gapping stuff that you're seeing now, he knows what gap he's responsible for, and he could be a lot more aggressive, based off of that. But I think I think he would have been more successful had Nick Saban not retired. Like he looks like the recognition and just the between the ear stuff has improved significantly. And so he's going to be an excellent player. I mean, whether it be in coverage, you talk about The sideline to sideline ability, the fact that you can get an effective pass rush out of him, just he can be this defensive chess piece that you can move around, do a lot of different things with, and he can cause defenses problems. Like when you have a piece like that, it's so important because you can pick favorable matchups for him. If the interior of an offensive line is really the weak point of an offensive line that you're playing, Dallas Turner's out there on the edge. Just like, okay, are we going to put Dallas Turner inside some? Like, you can do that a little bit, do some twists and some stunts and maybe get him to take advantage that way. But it's a lot more difficult to do with Jihaad Campbell. It's like, well, let's pick the weak spot and let's go after it with this guy. And so, I think that is so big for Alabama's defense because, it is the versatility of Jihaad Campbell and Justin Jefferson is what is going to make this Kane Womack 4-2-5 defense work. And the reason that I say that, like the Keon Sabs are too, any type of versatility is going to do it. The reason I say that is, typically like in the 3rd and long situation, the first one of the game, 3rd and 12, typically Alabama's going dime, under Nick Saban. They're even, doing something as far as getting the specialty package out there, the cheetah package. You did see the personnel switch up a little bit, but what you didn't see is it was still like a 4-2-5 true to its core. Like you had the 4 guys on the line of scrimmage, you had the 2 linebackers, and you had 5 defensive backs. What helps that is Jihaad Campbell's ability to be a primary pass rusher. He's got a lot more athleticism. You can, move him to an edge, but then you bring in Justin Jefferson, who has like defensive back like athleticism. Yeah. So it's almost like bringing a 6 defensive back on the field, but he's a linebacker and he's playing up in the box. Yeah. And so, like, one thing about Womack in previous stops is he didn't really like to get out of that 4-2-5 look. He didn't have special, sub packages and things like that a whole lot. The versatility of players like Campbell and others, that's going to go a long way in helping him continue to do that on the SEC level.
Completely agree. And we will close the show by saying I have once again misquoted exactly which game it was on Campbell. It's the second time in a row I've done it. It was Mississippi State, not Ole Miss. I don't know why I keep mixing that up. Anyway, but yes, this is a good mailbag edition. We'll be back again tomorrow, right?
Yeah. We'll be doing the stock up, stock down. I mean, granted, I guess we've talked about it enough where you might be able to guess some of the people that are on there, but we are going to do some stock down stuff, but it's not going to be overly negative. We're not trying to hate on anybody, but we did want to at least talk about maybe some guys who didn't have as big of a roles, or maybe they didn't play a great game, or whatever. But that's, we appreciate everybody that's tuned in for this. We definitely want to continue to do these every Monday. So definitely on Sundays, expect me to put up the mailbag thread over at covercrimson.com. If you got a question, hit us up like these other guys did. They were great questions. I enjoyed the conversation. Like this video, share this video, and definitely go subscribe over at covercrimson.com. Chris, brother, do you have anything else before we hop out of here? Are you about to give a free plug?
For every single person that submits a like and a share and a question for next week's mailbag, I will send you a Saratoga. I mean, I won't, but I you know what?
No. It's out there. We don't say stuff and kid.
We can do that. I'll tell you what, we'll choose one lucky winner. I will send you 7 Saratogas. How about that?
And the shirt off his back right now.
I'm not giving the shirt. This is one of my favorite shirts. Got it from Sam.
I know it is. I can tell you've wore it before, and this will be the last time.
On that note, we're going to get some dinner. I will talk to you later. No, this is great, man. I appreciate it. You guys were great in the chat. This has been a fantastic episode. We will see you all tomorrow for Stock Up, Stock Down. And then hopefully I will work. No, it's not Roback. This is from Sam's Club. It's like the most comfortable
Sears or Sam Club?
Sam's Club. Like legitimately, it's like a $12 shirt. It's the most comfortable shirt I've ever put on. That being said, we'll be back later this week, like Clint said, and then I'll talk to him off air, get him going on his picks. It's been a real tough start, but we'll go watch some football. We're gonna talk about that off air. But yeah, we're gonna go watch Florida State and go pull against Bill O'Brien. So y'all have a fantastic evening. We'll talk to y'all soon.